What is speculative realism? It's a new movement emerging in philosophy. It basically emerged in 2007 at an event in Goldsmiths College in London. So super fresh. This is extremely current philosophy. And it began with four people, just mention them briefly. Kanton Meillassoux, who wrote Après la finitude and After Finitude, and coined the term correlationism. And so all speculative realism is about is what Meillassoux calls correlationism. It's basically people challenging or questioning or reworking correlationism. Say, what is correlationism? It basically goes back to Kant, the Copernican revolution in consciousness that Kant initiated. And the whole point is correlationism is that we can only talk about being insofar as it relates to thought. So that thought relates to being relates to thought, and that's all we can talk about. So that means that we can't talk about being aside from thought. We can't talk about things in themselves without first talking about human consciousness or something like that. And Meillassoux doesn't have a problem with the correlate, he has a problem with the finitude of the correlate. So that he sort of infinitizes it, and so that we can talk about things in themselves still through our consciousness, but in a way that sort of absolutizes it so we can know them. Still through consciousness, but we can know them. The other people in speculative realism don't like the correlate at all. They say, I can talk about things without going through the human. So there's three of those, really briefly. The one you've already heard a lot about is Graham Harman, who uses a lot of Bruno Latour, a lot of Heidegger, and his philosophy is object-oriented philosophy. We can talk about things in themselves, and they're objects. They're both in infinite relations with other things and infinitely withdrawn and totally inaccessible. Then we have Ray Brassier, who's basically a nihilist, but the coolest nihilist ever, transcendental nihilism. I try and plug that because I know nihilism generally doesn't have a good reputation. And then Ian Hamilton Grant, who is basically using Schelling, kind of Deleuze. It's kind of like a process philosophy thing. But the whole point with Grant is we can get rid of the correlate by focusing on our sort of transcendental ground in the earth. And so we're going to hear more about that from Matt. So the basic point here is that we can do realism because we can talk about things in themselves. And we're speculative because we're bringing back metaphysics after a few centuries of people being totally anti-metaphysics. Either because they're being very scientistic and they don't want metaphysics, or because they just want to focus on language games instead of metaphysics, or because they just want to do critical theory and analyze structures of domination instead of doing metaphysics.